What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and this is a fantasy football channel where we cover everything that you need to dominate your fantasy football leagues literally daily, except for this week. It's Thanksgiving week, so we're only going to do like 4 or 5 videos because your boy, going to spend some time with family on Thursday and, kind of take some time to hang out and relax for, the holiday break. Now, I hope you guys are having a great week. I hope you guys have a great Thanksgiving weekend. Now, like we said, or like this video title says, we're going to hop into some trade targets today for week 12 of the fantasy football season. We're going to go over some guys you should be targeting if you're a contender, you're 8-3, 9-2, 10-1, and you want to go out there and, kind of backload your rosters so you can have a sick starting lineup going into the playoffs because you're already locked and loaded for that bye week, or guys that are, around 500 fighting, tooth and nail to get into the playoffs. Because a lot of the teams that I have, I'm just trying to get into the dance. I have a couple of teams that, have their bye weeks, whatever, but I also have maybe 4 or 5 teams that are, 5-6, 6-5, where we're just trying to get as many wins as possible here to sneak into the back end of the playoffs and then, try and make some noise, because it does help to have that bye week, advance to that next round. Now, I'm assuming here rounds 15 or playoff weeks are 15, 16, 17. That first week, the top 2 seeds get a bye. That's how most 12-team leagues operate. So I had a league last year where I snuck in as a 6 seed, went 7-6, and then I took it all down. So the numbers do say that the guys with bye weeks obviously have a bigger chance of winning, but you just want to sneak in and then make some noise in the big dance, as they call it. Now, I am rambling a little bit here. If at any point in time you enjoyed this video, make sure you go down below, subscribe, leave a like, and if you want access to all my rest of season rankings, that'll be on the Patreon, patreon.com/Ron Stewart. Let's go.
Thirsty, trying to choose. I know I'm critical. My nitty bag.
All right, fellas, our first buy target. Now, we're going to go through about 5 trade targets. I think I have 3 buys, 2 sells, some bonuses in there. And our first buy is Michael Gallup. And he's a guy I really like in terms of, coming out of school, I liked him. What he did in year 2 is really impressive. You guys remember, he had year 2, it was with Dak Prescott. Amari Cooper might have came mid-season that year, but he has a top 24 season on his resume, Michael Gallup. People really do forget that. But I do like Michael Gallup, for this week, because he's a really good option for a team that needs to win right now. If you are a team that is 5-6, 4-7, and you are really strong at running back, maybe you have, I'm trying to think of the teams that are on bye right now, but maybe you have, a DeAndre Hopkins on bye, or you have somebody on bye, or you have somebody hurt, like, CeeDee Lamb or Amari Cooper. If you need to go out there, you need to secure a win. This is a make or break week for you. I love Michael Gallup as a buy because he is going to be really good on Thanksgiving. He's just a really strong start this week. Now, I know last week he didn't make a ton of noise, right? So he came out there with CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb gets hurt, and then Michael Gallup didn't really do much. He only puts up 9.4 points. Here's the thing. The production wasn't there. He had 5 catches for 44 yards, but the volume was there. He saw 10 targets. That's all we can ask for. The usage was there. And to me, he's a fringe wide receiver 2 while Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb are gone. Now, CeeDee Lamb might suit up tomorrow. You guys are going to see this on Thursday. So he might suit up tomorrow on Thanksgiving Day. He might not. We'll see. Even if CeeDee Lamb suits up, I still like Michael Gallup as, the wide receiver 2 in that offense, as a guy that can still, put up a top 24 week for you, right? If you need somebody in flex, you don't have anybody good in the wide receiver 2 spot. I like him because, 1, he's going to be a top 24 play. I just got done writing my wide receiver tier list. I believe he made the top 24. So you can get a top 24 play, and this is why I love him as a buy, because you can get a top 24 play for the near term and pay wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 prices, because his price, 1, hasn't adjusted because he performed poorly last week, and 2, once Amari Cooper comes back, his value, he's no longer a wide receiver 2. So he's a wide receiver 2 for 1 week, and I don't think that his price is adjusted to that rental cost, if that makes sense. I still think you can get him for a wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 type price, especially if the guy who has Gallup is a contender who doesn't need to win this week. You could go out there and get him pretty cheaply, or pretty cheap. Now, you also have the thing where Amari Cooper has kind of been injury prone in the past. CeeDee Lamb is now dealing with injury. You also have upside here where you get this week against the Raiders, where you already know he's going to be out there in 2 wide receiver sets with CeeDee Lamb at worst, and he'll be a top 24 play. Then you also have the ability where Amari or CD could miss future weeks, and Gallup has 2 juicy matchups after Thursday. He plays the Saints and the Washington football team, who are 2 teams giving up they're in the top 3 defenses, giving up the most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. I don't know why I struggled to say that, but it was hard to formulate it in my head. Regardless, Washington, Saints, both bad teams against the wide receivers. So you get a really good week this week, and then you can still have him as like a flex play against those really soft defenses and have, a strong start for the next 3 weeks. Now, according to the Reddit trade value chart, we're going to go off the Reddit trade value chart for today. I don't know if any of you guys want to look at it, you can ask me to link it, and I'll link it down below in the comments, but I use it just to kind of gauge like what the market's at. And apparently for Michael Gallup, you can buy Michael Gallup for Cole Beasley straight up. You can buy him for Corey Davis straight up. You can also downgrade from. Apparently, you can do this. I'm very skeptical that you can do this, but they continue to disrespect DeAndre Swift on these trade value charts. I really don't know what it is, but apparently you can go from Mixon to Swift and Gallup. If you can do that, I do that all day long. By the way, if you can do Mixon for Swift straight up, I would do that all day as well. But according to these charts, they still love to disrespect DeAndre Swift. I could not tell you why. Now, moving on from that, we have our second buy candidate. And this one almost hurts me to say, because I'm such a known David Montgomery non-believer. But I don't mind him as a buy at this point. And he's a good buy for anybody. Maybe not so much a contender where you're trying to backload stuff, but just guys who are in the mix right now. And he's someone you can kind of buy low on. Now, you can buy low on him because he had this, the AFC North? The AFC North where he played the Steelers and the Ravens back-to-back. He had 10 points, 7.7 points. Both tough matchups, both of them negative game scripts. The thing is that the usage was really strong. The usage was super strong. That's where I'm kind of latching on to. As you can see, he has had 109 snaps in his last 2 games to Khalil Herbert's 17. In his last 2 games since injury, remember, he was coming back of injury in that first game, and they still used him as an absolute workhorse. He had 86.5% of the snaps since that week and 85.7% of the opportunities, so the carries and the targets. Those numbers that he's posted the last 2 weeks would be second in snap share and second in opportunity share among all running backs behind only Najee Harris. So if you love Najee Harris and you love the guaranteed touches, David Montgomery is like a poor man's Najee Harris. He's still going to give you that floor. He's going to get enough touches to score on the goal line and do his thing. And the thing I love about David Montgomery is his schedule down the stretch. Now, side note, let me know if you guys want me to go over fantasy schedules, because once trade targets are gone, I'll probably stop doing these trade target videos pretty much once the playoffs start, like week 14. So we'll do it this week and we'll do it next week, most likely. Or I guess playoffs start week 15 for a lot of my leagues. But if playoffs, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out when to stop these trade target videos. But something that we can do is kind of go over, and we've done this in the past when I did like my rest of season league winners, but I can just kind of highlight in general which running backs and wide receivers and, quarterbacks, tight ends have like really, really juicy matchups and which ones have really bad matchups. But David Montgomery is one of the guys that have juicy matchups, especially in the playoffs. So he has Detroit this week, which means you need to buy now because he's going to have a great week against Detroit. Then a shitty matchup against Arizona, a bad matchup against Green Bay, which is fine. But then his home stretch of games in the playoffs, 15, 16, 17. He has a team that is allowing the 10th most fantasy points allowed, the 3rd most fantasy points allowed, and the 6th most fantasy points allowed, which is massive. Those are all games where you can go crazy, and we've seen it before with David Montgomery. Last year, he was a guy that was a league winner. You needed to have, if you wanted to go out there and dominate. I'm trying to remember. No, he didn't. I was going to say the guy who won, so Herzig, right? Herzig won the Best Ball Mania last year, which was like $500,000 to first. His running backs were, you needed to have Alvin Kamara, Jonathan Taylor, or David Montgomery to win your championship. David Montgomery was red hot down the stretch, had a bunch of easy matchups, killed them all. This seems like he could have that same kind of situation go on where he goes out there, gets red hot down the stretch. We've seen it from David Montgomery before. That's why I'm saying I wouldn't be surprised if we saw week 15 through 17, he was just an absolute league winner in the playoffs. So that's why I like him. If you can sneak David Montgomery into the playoffs, he can possibly hammer you home. If you can kind of stomach those 2, Arizona, Green Bay games. I will say though, like, anybody can play against anybody. He can still be fine. Now, also on the Reddit trade value chart, 2 guys I'd be looking to sell right now, Melvin Gordon and Mike Williams. You can do Melvin Gordon and Mike Williams for Dave Montgomery straight up. I don't hate that at all because to me, We're going to talk about Mike Williams later on. I have him as a sell. And then Melvin Gordon's a guy that I think is a little bit overvalued right now. I do get that him and Javonte Williams have a very juicy schedule down the stretch here, but I'd rather give up Melvin Gordon for the price you can give him up for. Like on that Reddit trade value chart, he was right around, like I think that he was maybe like only a few points below guys like Antonio Gibson and Elijah Mitchell. And if I can sell Melvin Gordon for like a top, 25 running back price, 30 running back price, I would pretty easily. Also, Mike Williams will get into in a little bit. Now, moving on from that, we have a buy for contenders. And we're going to talk about A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown's been a tough one, fellas. It's been a tough one because the process has been there. The process has been there. We know he's amazing. He's now seeing the most volume that he's ever seen. And for a guy that has thrived his entire career off of insane, unsustainable efficiency, this is what we wanted. We wanted really good target volume because we know how efficient he is, how good he is, and he can turn that into a wide receiver one season. Problem is, he's been really unlucky with injuries. He had the Chipotle food seasoning. He had maybe like a hamstring injury or something like that in the beginning of the season that kept him out for a few games. And now he has another injury. Again, I don't love buying players that are injured. We've talked about this before. I don't love doing it. But I think in this case, when we know that A.J. Brown is such a known commodity and he's really good, I don't mind buying him. Preferably, again, if you have a bye week. If you have a bye week locked in, you're like 10-1, you're 9-2. When the guy who has A.J. Brown is like maybe like 4-7, 5-6, and really can't take any more zeros from him because I do believe that he's not going to play this week. We'll see. I believe that he misses this week and then he has a bye week in week 13 and then he's probably back week 14 for a playoff run, but we'll see. Jeez. If you didn't say God bless you, you're not a real subscriber, supporter. Now, again, A.J. Brown always been super efficient, really good on low volume. Now he's getting a career high in target share. And the reason why you trade for him now is because, I don't believe he plays, and I believe he has a bye. And then I think he comes back week 14. And then week 14 through 17, he should tear it up. And I say that because for whatever reason, A.J. Brown has been an absolute monster down the stretch. From 2019 to 2021, if you take just his weeks from week 14 to week 17, he averages in PPR 21.96 points per game. All of his other games are 12.93. It's crazy. He is a guy that is a league winner. I don't know. I really couldn't tell you what it is, why he really clicks down the stretch, but he's done it 2 years now where he's been really, really good down the stretch. So I think, again, he's going to get healthy by week 14, and then you just ride week 14 through week 17 for your playoff run. And if you're a team with a bye, you can now go to a team that is struggling, needs wins now, and you do something like you can do James Conner or Antonio Gibson plus for him, apparently. If you do James Conner or Antonio Gibson and you add like a waiver wire guy, you can get A.J. Brown. If you do Melvin Gordon and Darnell Mooney, apparently for A.J. Brown. So you can buy him extremely low. Now I'm going to say, apparently on the Reddit trade value chart, you can do Melvin Gordon and Darnell Mooney. I don't think that'll actually work, but some guys might get hit over their heels for, the Darnell Mooney week. But I don't hate at all James Conner, Antonio Gibson. I don't hate something like A.J. Dillon, maybe like A.J. Dillon and a plus, somebody that is kind of a more short-term asset, like A.J. Dillon and Michael Gallup, or, A.J. Dillon and another piece, maybe like A.J. Dillon and Mike Williams. That might even be an overpay, but you guys get what I'm saying. Guys that are more for the short term than they are the long term. Now, some bonus guys I want to talk about. I didn't write any notes for them, but just guys off the top of my head that I think are really good buys right now. One, we have DK Metcalf. I get that he struggled with Russ recently, where Russ just hasn't been great, but it's just not on DK. He had 8 targets to Tyler Lockett's 4. Tyler Lockett had a great game, but Metcalf just didn't, his targets just didn't connect. Now, the pace sucks, all of that, but the DK Metcalf owner is probably going to be very frustrated. DK Metcalf on the trade value chart that I look at has dropped. I think he dropped like 14 points, something crazy. So people are really souring on Metcalf. If you can go trade for him, I would do that all day long, no matter the situation. I don't think that Russell Wilson is just all of a sudden not good at football. I imagine that bounces back. The other name I have is T. Higgins. T. Higgins has also dropped really low. I get that it was a bad week this week, but those just happen. He hasn't scored a touchdown in a while. I just think that T. Higgins, he hasn't scored a touchdown since week 2. He's one of the easiest, positive regression candidates. He also has, I want to say he's up there like for the team lead in red zone targets at this point. I do get that Jamar Chase is there, but I do think that T. Higgins is one of the easiest buy low candidates in the history of buy low candidates, right? He's a guy that we know is good. He gets targets. He didn't get them last game, but it was like a game script where they're up like 30. They just kind of leaned on Joe Mixon. If you can get T. Higgins for, like wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 type prices, which I think you probably could at this point, I don't hate him at all as a very strong buy. Then we're going to switch to sells. And this one, I'll be honest with you guys, I'm going to be straight up. This one does feel like getting cute, given the running back landscape, how, everything is falling apart at running back. There aren't a lot of running backs at the top that are very good. So Mixon is somebody you want to hold on to. And I can't stress enough, I'm saying sell Mixon, but I would only sell Mixon if I'm getting a running back in return that is some kind of upgrade to Joe Mixon. I think you can sell Joe Mixon high. He now has 4 top 5 fantasy finishes in his past 5 games. He's just so hot right now that I think you can sell him high. The problem is, for me, is just the way he's getting volume. He had 30 carries, and he had no targets last game. So they beat the Raiders pretty good. The problem is that he saw 30 carries, and even the targets that went to the running backs. There was 4 targets to the running backs. They all went to Chris Evans and Samaje Perine. He isn't being used as a pass catching back, which is really dangerous because he's only going to benefit from games where there's positive game scripts to the point where you can feed a Joe Mixon, 30 carries. And the reason why that it's an issue for me is I had to go pull this up, and the Bengals have had the second easiest schedule to date. So you can see first is hardest, 32nd is easiest. The Patriots, it's actually pretty interesting side note that the Patriots have had the easiest schedule so far, but in terms of, the point spread power rankings that the PFF does, the Bengals have had the second easiest schedule to date. The remaining schedule is the 7th toughest. So that's a huge flip, right? Now they have to play Steelers, Chargers, 49ers, Broncos, Ravens, Kansas City. I'm not sure they're going to be favored in any of those games besides maybe... I'm trying to think. I don't think that they're going to be favored against Pittsburgh. They could be, maybe by like a couple points. Probably not favored against the Chargers. Probably be pretty even against the 49ers. Again, this is all speculation. I could be wrong. I think they'll only be favorites against the Broncos. I think they'll probably be underdogs to the Steelers, Chargers, 49ers, Ravens, and Chiefs. I could be wrong, though. I'm kind of an idiot when it comes to spreads and stuff. So if you think they're going to be favored, fine. But their schedule is very tough coming up, which means when you have a team like the Bengals, I don't think they're going to be in a ton of game scripts where they're going to be able to, run the ball to Joe Mixon 30 times. So when he's seeing volume like that, and a lot of people, they see, oh, Joe Mixon's getting 30 carries, he's going to have a lot of volume locked in. People love volume for running backs, which I get it. I understand why you want that. But I think you can use that to then grab, Joe Mixon a piece and go upgrade. So if you can grab Joe Mixon and a piece, I would sell Joe Mixon and a piece, like Joe Mixon and, a Chase Claypool, or even like an Elijah Moore. If I could do Joe Mixon and Elijah Moore or Chase Claypool and get McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Dalvin Cook, Austin Eckler, or even Najee Harris, I probably would. Apparently, you can sell Mixon for DeAndre Swift in a piece, like DeAndre Swift and Michael Gallup for Joe Mixon. If I could sell, I would take Swift straight up over Joe Mixon too. Apparently, you can do Joe Mixon for DK Metcalf and AJ Brown. I doubt that happens, but apparently you could do that. And then you can also do something along the lines of like Joe Mixon, and you can downgrade to a running back. I wouldn't love to do this, to be honest. I think I'd probably hold Joe Mixon here, but the trade calculator said that you can do like Joe Mixon to, James Robinson, and then a like Hollywood Brown or a DeAndre Hopkins. I don't hate that at all if you need depth, but also not really trying to. Again, if I sell Joe Mixon, I want to buy Swift, Najee Harris, Dalvin Cook, Austin Eckler, Jonathan Taylor, or Christian McCaffrey. Those are the 6 guys that I'd be wanting to move from Joe Mixon into, if that makes sense. So, Joe Mixon and a piece that you don't need into one of those guys. Now, the next guy that we're going to be talking about selling is Mike Williams. And we've had this guy as a sell for a while, or as a sell all the time. I think we said to sell after like his last like red hot game, but this is another spot to sell him after another big game. This is a classic sell high. I don't really love these like classic sell highs where the guy has like a boom game, because everyone's trying to sell high after that. But Mike Williams is kind of just, it's obvious at this point. He had 5 catches, 97 yards, and a touchdown. The problem is that most of his yardage came off of one huge 53-yard touchdown at the end of the game. Without it, he would have only had 4 catches for 44 yards. Now, I don't care about that stuff. I don't usually take away like big plays from a player, especially like Mike Williams, who benefits from big plays. But I say that to say that volume has been a concern for him, man. It's not like if he had, like 9 targets and he turned it into 597 and 1, fine. But the volume just hasn't been there. He saw a 14.6% target share in this game, as opposed to Keenan Allen, who had a 30% or better target share. All the targets are going to Keenan Allen. They're even getting like Josh Palmer, Guyton, guys like that. Donald Parham's even taking targets away from Mike Williams. They're spreading the ball out. They're no longer using Mike Williams as an alpha, and it's just not enough. He was at a 25% target share through 4 of his first 5. Now, he hasn't seen anything great. He has seen below a 19% target share, according to Mike Clay, in his last 5 games. Keenan Allen has had a target share of at least 33% in his last 4 games. So it's really shifted to Keenan Allen at this point. I think the role is gone that we thought. I think that he is, just what he was last game. He is just a deep threat, boomer bust, wide receiver 3. And I think you can sell him for a wide receiver 2 price. Apparently you can sell him straight up for Amari Cooper. You can sell him straight up for Hollywood Brown. I think you can add a piece to Mike Williams and get Hollywood Brown. I think that you can do Mike Williams and, a Fournette or a Cordell Patterson, get DeAndre Swift according to the trade chart. So I wouldn't mind doing something like that. Mike Williams is somebody that I'd be looking to try and get out of. If anybody out there thinks that he is still the guy that he was early on in the season, there are some of those Mike Williams stands out there. I've seen them on the timeline, but that's just a guy that I'd be looking to sell high off of his last matchup. Now, that's going to do it for us today. I'm going to try and get this video up as soon as possible. I'm going to sit down, write the top 24 tier list videos. I'm going to have those up tomorrow morning so you guys can watch them before the games happen on Thursday. I want to have them both scheduled for like 6 a.m. and 8 a.m., like something really, really early. So be on the lookout for that. And then that's going to be it for this week, fellas. No live stream on Sunday. Again, going to take some time off, hang out with the family, hang out with Winnie, my dog. And that's going to do it, fellas. As always, I love you guys. Thank you for, I want to say we're like 7.34K subscribers. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.
I got the juice, I got the juice. 10-0, Chatham's on. Foolies glad I'm home. Even my haters kinda glad I'm on. Rest in peace to my vagabond. Rapper, song, singer, suspended, subpoena from Mr. Meaner.